In this video, I want to talk about how to solve systems of equations by using the elimination technique. Now, the point of the video is just to show you how to do the elimination step. It's not to show you how to solve the entire problem. So there's a couple things. One, let's talk about the criteria for elimination. To eliminate variables, what we're looking for is to make sure we have the same variable. If we're going to eliminate x, we need to make sure we have x's that we're dealing with, okay, or y, or whatever variable that the problem presents. We need to make sure that one number is positive and one number is negative. By doing so, that's going to allow us to cancel them out and get a 0. But in order to get a 0, they need to be the same number. So for example, here, if I had -4 and 4, that would cancel out and give us 0. And that is what we're trying to do with elimination, is to cancel things out or 0 them out. So there's a couple types of problems. One type of problem for elimination is that the problem is set up for you in a way that it eliminates right away without any manipulation of the equations. So when we look at the two variables here, we see we have a positive x and a positive x. We see we have a positive y and a negative y. So keep in mind that we have the same variable here for y. We have one positive, one negative, and they're both the number 1. So in this case, these would cancel out. And then what we would do for the first step is then just do an addition. So x plus x is 2x is equal to 40. And then we would figure out quickly that x is equal to 20 and go ahead and solve the problem. So the elimination step here, again, is that we had a positive and negative variable that had the same coefficient number. Now let's look at the second type of problem. In this case, we're going to multiply one equation by a number that meets our criteria. So if we look here, we have 3 and 2. Well, we can't really multiply anything by one equation to get rid of x for this problem. If we look at y, we have a negative y, which is technically a -1, and we have a positive 5. So if we multiply the top equation by 5, what ends up happening is we would get 15x, we would get a minus 5y, and then we would get 40. Okay, and then we would repeat or just copy down the second equation. We would not manipulate the second equation at all. So now what we see is we have a -5 and a positive 5, and that cancels out. And so then what we would do if we were solving this, 17x would equal to 41, and then we would go ahead and solve for x and then substitute back in to find y. So that's the technique of multiplying one equation. Again, we need to keep in mind what the criteria is for elimination. All right, now the last type here is where we're going to multiply both equations, okay? So in this type of example, if I wanted to eliminate x, okay? Now, when we multiply both equations, you have a choice often of how you do that. So the technique for multiplying both equations is to multiply by the opposite equation's coefficient. So what do I mean by that? So I'm going to multiply the top by 3 and the bottom by 2. And what's going to happen is we get 3 times 2 is 6 and 2 times 3 is 6. But we need one to be negative. So in this case, because the coefficients in the original are both positive, one of them needs to be considered a negative. So you can choose in this case which one is negative. I'm just going to choose the bottom. So what we have in this case then is we have 6x for the top equation plus 12y is equal to 15. On the bottom equation, we have minus 6x, we have a positive 6y, and we have a positive 14. Okay, and by doing so, we would eliminate the x. Now, let's look at this example here where I'm going to copy the equation. So 2x plus 4y is equal to 5. Okay, Uh, 2x plus 4y is equal to 5. And then I'm going to copy the bottom equation as well. Um, and then we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to eliminate the y. I guess I could have just erased this. That's okay. All right, so let's just work on the original equation here. But now this time I'm going to eliminate the y's. So if I multiply, again, we're going to multiply by the other equation's coefficient. So the other equation's coefficient is 3, and the other one here is 4. Okay, now when we look, we're going to get a positive 12 and a negative 12. And so the way it's written, we're good. Okay, so 6x plus 12y is equal to 15. Down here, we would get 12x, and then this would be a minus 12y is equal to a negative 28. And by doing that, that eliminates the y. And so we had a choice. When you multiply both equations, it really doesn't matter what variable. Sometimes questions and problems will be presented and the numbers would be more favorable towards one variable, but in reality, you could technically multiply both equations by a coefficient. So hopefully that explains the criteria and the numbers we choose to eliminate the variables.